about democracy had never been done anywhere before in the world. And so the whole crux of the Civil War was, it was going to break up this great democracy, and the grand experiment would blow up. In fact, at the Gettysburg Address, what did he say? That this late nation so conceived could long endure. So this has not been done every other place. 1977, Art Williams, on February the 10th, right here in Atlanta, Georgia, made the decision to leave Waddell and Reed to form what we know, that was, in fact, it's at my house that we coined the name. A lot of people won't believe it. On February 14th, we coined the name A.O. Williams at my house through a series of events. And Art wanted to have an experiment. This thing you're talking about, America, is an experiment where in the financial services industry, no place on earth can you build a company within a company. Your job here is not to be a PFA. Your job here is not to get a license. Your job is not to be an RVP. Your job is to build a company within your uplines company who's building an upline in their uplines company. You're here to build a company. That's not recruit a team, an organization, a hierarchy. You're recruiting a company for people to come in and build their own company. And it's a grand experiment that has never been done before. It's been highly criticized everywhere in the United States, condemned. To this day, people don't like us, which ought to tell you something. And you see, a lot of you folks out there say, well, I know what I got hold of here. I mean, maybe you don't, but I do. I know what I got. No, you don't. It's amazing how many people think they understand it. And one good story is about a guy that went to something called the flea market back when and bought these kind of plates he thought were pretty neat. They had some visions on it. Paid like $10 for it. And he got home and promptly stuck it up in his attic. 40 years later, he dies. His kids are rummaging through the attic, and they find these plates that get them evaluated. They're worth $100 million. They're rare Ansel Adams from the turn of the century lithographic plates. See, he didn't know what he had. He was sticking up there. How many of you have a license? And you got it stuck up there. And you're not doing anything with it. You don't even come to the opportunity meetings because it's too far to travel. There's another guy that started a pizza company with his brother. After about 6 months, it wasn't going so good. So he sold his half of the pizza company to his brother for a used Volvo. That company went on to become Domino's. And Tom Monahan sold the company for $1 billion many years ago. Brother didn't know what he had. Didn't understand what he had. You ever hear of Apple Computer? There are 3 men that started that. Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ron Wayne. Ron Wayne owned 10% of Apple. Within 12 months, it wasn't going so good. So he sold his 10% back to Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs for $2,300. That today would be worth $75 billion. You're going, wow, see, you get a license. You got a telephone. You got a license, and you got a telephone, and you got a car. You're just like the rest of these people. They don't know what they had. They thought, I'll get around them one of these days. You probably haven't heard of a guy named Edward Roberts. Edward Roberts he invented the personal computer, and he started building computers with a small little company called MIT in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And he had these 2 young programmers come and started working with him. And they wanted to start software with his computer. And he thought it was a nice little thing. Anyway, he didn't partner up with them. And their names were Bill Gates and Paul Allen. And by the way, you might have heard the name of Edward Roberts, but you have heard of his nephew, Larry Waddell. That's his uncle. Look at it, Edward Roberts, and Google, you'll find out all about it. You see, all of us tend to think, well, I got this thing down, I understand it. No, you don't. You don't understand what you got a hold of here. Everything that Randy talked about, everything that we've been talking about here. You don't get it. And you don't get it bothers me. Because most of us go through our life within inches of greatness and hitting our pay dirt. But we don't do anything with it because it doesn't look like something great because it's not brick and mortar. It's not a building with brick and mortar and inventory and employees and overhead and multiple offices. Yep. As an example, Uber. What does it own? Nothing. Yet in 6 years, they went from no drivers to 600,000 drivers. And they control 70% of the ride-hailing business in the United States. 70%. And they own nothing. Just like Facebook owns nothing. Yeah, but we were Uber before Uber was Uber, and we were Facebook before Facebook was Facebook. We created this for our financial services industry. But you've got to be ready and coming here tonight with your track shoes on and your running shoes, like I did. You see, most of you don't understand what I'm going through. See, I have something called plantar fasciitis, which is only for elite athletes. And so they don't running shoes because hard shoe I can't wear them. So anyway, that's my excuse for looking like Art Williams. So you got away with it. So did I. So many of you will sell your birthright for the bowl of porridge. In a great movie, Up in the Air, with George Clooney, he goes into companies and fires people for the company. He sits down in front of this guy and says to him, "How much did they pay you to give up on your dreams?" The guy bowed his head and said, $35,000. How much are you selling your dreams for? That weekly paycheck. And we're going to be talking tomorrow about building something so quickly, it'll make your head swim. You know, back in the 1930s, early 30s, the Arab world isn't like it is today. The Arab world had to have oil, believe it or not. And they contracted with the United States because we were successful drillers to go to the Arab world and drill for water. Because they had all those deserts and no water. They needed water. They didn't find any water. What did they find? Oil. And guess what they did with all that stupid stuff around? Isn't it sad? All that money are blowing things up, getting mad at everybody. It's dumb. But you see, the point is, they didn't know what they had underneath them. Imagine an 80-year-old Arab saying, "Now you find it?" Like some of you older folks in this room, I'm telling you, you're looking at the younger folks going, you don't get it. Man, if I were your age and had to do it all over again, if I were 25 or 27 or 28 years old, I'd be working every night, every weekend, Sunday. I'd be recruiting people. I'd be having appointments coming out of my ears. I'd be getting all over. I wouldn't play golf. I wouldn't play tennis. I wouldn't do anything but recruit. Because you understand what you got a hold of. See, that's the kind of thought process you got to have if you understand what? You know what you got a hold of. You know, so many people look at us and they stick their noses up. Like a guy go to an art museum. He starts walking around there, walks out, says to the security guard, "Not much to look at in here, is there?" Security guard said, "Sir, the art isn't on trial here, the visitors are." You're on trial here, we're not. The system works. And the system will deliver for everybody in this room. If it doesn't, it's because you didn't apply yourself. The only thing in your way is your way. If your way is working so good, why do you even have to join Primerica? Why aren't you recruiting us to what you're doing? Think about this, Randy. How many phone calls have you had in the last 30 years, someone trying to recruit you into something that there's not out there? I was talking to someone the other day. We had about 1,000 people in the room. I said, stand up if in the last 10 years you've even been called by an insurance agent to buy life insurance. 2 people stood up. The industry is dead. They're a bunch of toothless tigers. No one's selling life insurance. And we got it all. All. 85% of all Americans have no personal life insurance. Few are those willing to do the unusual to experience the incredible. So very few people get this because it's unusual. It's different. It is. You don't want the same. You want something different in your life. But this is different. Yeah. That's why we're talking to you, because it is different. And see, what is our system? Our system is not recruiting people. See, never be afraid to lose people. They should be afraid to be losing you. When you sit down in front of somebody, make sure you're looking at people going, you know what? I'll give you a chance. I'll give you about 5 to 10 minutes of my time. If not, I'm going to be going. Because I tell people, I only need 5 or 10 minutes. They said, you only need 5 or 10 minutes? Yeah. Do you have a presentation? No. To decide whether or not I want to fool with them.